Pack your bags. We're headed to Buffalo. All right. Just like that, the 82nd game of the Boston Bruins season has ended, and the Bruins not only have punched their ticket to the dance, everything is solidified, I believe, completely now in the East. We have every matchup. There are still games the next couple days. The West can still move around a little bit, but the East is set. The Bruins will be taking on the Buffalo Sabres in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. God, it feels good to say, and man, am I excited. That whole subject we're going to save for a separate video that I want to make this week, hopefully leading up to the playoffs. I want to do more of a deep dive, a bit more of a serious analysis, more akin to, I'd say, like the Fraser Minton video that I made, and actually look at what the matchups are looking like, what Buffalo's done this season compared to what the Bruins have done this season. That is going to be separate. This, I wanted to take the first minute to celebrate that fact, and then we're going to recap very quickly the last two games of the season, because they didn't matter a ton, and that's evidenced by the Bruins resting half their team in the game against Columbus, which was on Sunday, and today's game was on Tuesday against the Devils, where the Bruins shut out the Devils to close out the season, blanked them 4-0 on 4 first period goals. So we're going to kind of talk about those two games kind of quickly, and maybe just do a rip through the overall playoffs, maybe a couple notes here and there. But like I said, I want to focus my more professional, you can call it that, analysis on a separate video. So diving into it, let's start with the game that was today, Tuesday the 14th. The Bruins took on the Devils at home in the final game of their regular season. A note at the beginning was that a win in that game would guarantee playing Buffalo round one. That would solidify the Bruins in the first wild card spot. Buffalo got the Atlantic. That would solidify the matchup, and has such solidified the matchup. Bruins ending this season with 100 points as well. So that was kind of a cool figure to hit. And speaking of hitting 100 points, David Pastrnak hits 100 points on the season on Morgan Geekie's 39th goal, which came 53 seconds into this game. They started out what they've dubbed the kid line in the booth, which I think is very funny, of Minton, Husnudinov, and Hagens. And right out the gate, that line had crazy good zone pressure to start the game. And I think they kind of just did a 1-by-1 change out, and Geekie and Pasta get onto the ice, and Pasta just dumps the puck out from behind the net to Geekie right in front, lasers it by Dawes. I don't know. I do not know who that dude is. I don't know where Jacob Markstrom is. I haven't been watching a lot of Devils hockey, if I'm going to be honest. But Geekie gets his 39th, but more importantly, Pasta gets his 100th point. Save that puck, because it is a crazy split to get that on. I think it's 29 goals and 71 assists. Unfortunately, there's a lot of very close milestones that could have been hit in this game that weren't. One of them, Geekie getting to 40. He would have needed an extra goal. Did not get it. And Pasta hitting 30 goals. Comes up short on the 30-goal season. I know he's real upset about it, I'm sure. He ends with 29 goals, 71 points, 71 assists, I think, for the 100 points. And the Bruins just kept pouring it on that first period. Kassel gets one on a feed from behind the net from Tanner Jeannot. It was the same exact setup as the first goal. Somebody's down behind the net, dumps it out in front. There's a guy there to tap it in. Kassel gets his first there. And then a second with 2:18 remaining in the period. I'm thinking, oh, okay. One were on Kassel Hattie watch, which no one had. And the Bruins are up 3-0. Fantastic. Victor Arvidsson says, I will have what they're having, and gets a last second tap in with 6.4 seconds remaining in the period. And then that's kind of just where it goes. They just coast. But I think this game was great in a lot of ways, where one, the Bruins got an early lead and just sat on it. Pause. And two, Swayman was seeing the puck super well, had to make difficult saves, but also got the confidence boost of, the bump of playing a kind of bad team, and walks into the playoffs off a shutout. I mean, that's a pretty darn good way to enter the playoffs. Just seeing the puck really well, making big saves, and having that confidence. I think it's such a big thing to feel good and play well going in. And the Bruins were kind of on a bit of a skid there and then put together 2 good games to kind of close out the season. So I think I leave this season feeling much better going into the playoffs than I would have a couple of games ago. Second period, I made one note. It said this period was much slower. Nothing crazy happened. Period 3, it's a little more exciting because things almost happen. Geeky almost gets his 40th on a breakaway, but he got his 1 breakaway goal for the year, so that's that. Mikey Asamont scores a goal on a Lori rebound, which later then gets recalled because they were offsides. Nikita Zadorov racks up 2 more penalty minutes to try to guarantee his spot at the top of the PIMS leaderboard for the season with close to 150. I think it's 145 or something like that. But the game ends. Swayman gets the shutout, and we got Bruins versus Sabres. I don't actually know when the first game is. I want to say the playoffs start on Saturday, which would give the Bruins a nice couple days off here because there are games, I think, all the way until Thursday this week. So Bruins get lucky, wrap it up a little bit early, and hopefully get some rest. I think the Sabres still have to play 1 more. Hopefully it's on Thursday, get them nice and tired. Not that they're going to start any of their good players, but that's that. Bruins win 4-0 over the Devils to close out the season. We'll quickly jump back to the Bruins game from Sunday, which was Bruins at Columbus. I couldn't watch this game. It was on NHL Network. I have no way of getting that at all. So I listened to part of it on the radio at the gym. So the Bruins won. James Hagen's got a point. That was the most exciting thing there. And the 4th line, I think, contributed to the other 2 goals. So shout out the 4th line. They've been holding it down. These last 2 games, they are racking up the points. So they're setting the tone. They're ready to go. And I think, like I said earlier, I feel a lot better about where this team is going into the playoffs than I did following the game with the Lightning, where I was ready to lose it all. There's a long road ahead of the Bruins. They've merely punched the ticket. They've earned the privilege to play at least 4 more games, and I'm hoping it's a hell of a lot more than that. And it was so cool to see a team that I think nobody had doing this well. I think nobody quite had them in like Gavin McKenna watch, but I don't think anybody had this team making the playoffs at all, myself included. I think if you'd asked me realistically, do I think this team's going to the playoffs at the beginning of the season, I would have said no. The copium answer is always going to be, they'll figure it out. But it's off the back of, so many different players pitching in, having fantastic seasons. I mean, the entire second line, you can just start there with Zacha having a career year, Victor Arvidsson having a huge year, Casey Middlestat kind of rounding that line out, Jonathan Aspro taking a huge jump up and leading the Bruins in plus minus as a rookie defenseman and playing on our top defensive line, looking like our far and away second best defenseman in that. Swayman taking the jump back to kind of where we knew he was capable of playing. Pasta still getting 100 points despite only scoring 29 goals as one of the best goal scorers in the NHL, completely switching up his game to support the team's needs and finding another way to contribute. Morgan Geekie having another unreal year, proving it's, maybe it's not just luck. Yes, he started out the year so hot and then kind of petered out and really hurt a lot of the Morgan Geekie 50 goal campaign energy I was putting out there. But when you don't score for 13 games and then 17 games, that's tough. But I think just up and down the lineup, you'd be hard pressed to find a single person that didn't find a way to contribute. A team of a bunch of guys, you're like, who? Who just scored? And they find a way to get there. And I think that's been the coolest part of this Bruins season is like every night you're not quite sure whose night it's going to be. And somebody steps up and makes the play. And don't get me wrong, I got on here and complained about this team to no end. There's plenty of just me dragging people through the mud on this channel. But at the end of the day, the Bruins get to play at least 4 more. And that's pretty special. We're just entering the best time of the year in hockey in general. It didn't exactly shake out the way I hoped in terms of some of the matchups and some of the teams that I was hoping would get in. But Bruins are there and will be taking on the Buffalo Sabres, who frankly, once we kind of figured out where we were going to land in that wild card and who was going to be ahead of us, it was them or the Habs. I was just hoping we'd avoid the Lightning, and I'm now hoping that the Habs can take care of the Lightning. We'll go from there. I'm kind of just rambling about random shit at this point, so I'm going to try to cut this one off, and we'll have separate videos. One, I want to do some more research on the actual matchup, looking back at how the Bruins have played against the Sabres, what the Sabres did to get there, what the Bruins did to get there, etc. Much more research, much less off the head rambling like I'm doing right now. And then we'll go back to recapping as the playoffs start, and then we'll kind of go from there. I have a couple ideas for videos I want to make, and we'll cross that bridge when we need to get to it. But until then, we're going to try to have a playoff preview for the Bruins versus Sabres, and then we'll be back to recaps with a hell of a lot more energy because every single game is going to matter a whole lot more now. So let's see what the Bruins can do. They close out the 2025-2026 season on a 2-game win streak, and they enter the playoffs playing some damn good hockey. So let's see what they can do. Again, I'll catch you later with a couple of new videos, and then back to some recaps for the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs.